nobody needs to know your name yet. But if nobody needs what you can do, your ambition is still invisible. That is the truth most unknown men cannot tolerate. They think the world is ignoring them because they have not been discovered. They think if they had more followers, more applause, more support, more people believing in them, then money would come. But Machiavelli would not ask how many people know you. He would ask a colder question. Who depends on you? Because fame is not the foundation. Usefulness is. Attention without usefulness creates noise. Usefulness without attention can still create money. And the man who understands this stops begging to be seen and starts becoming necessary. There is a hidden reason why some men stay poor even when they are ambitious. It is not always laziness. It is not always lack of intelligence. It is not even always lack of opportunity. The real reason is more humiliating. They chase recognition before they build utility. They want people to believe in them before they have become useful enough to be needed. They want applause before evidence. They want confidence before competence. They want the world to see their potential before they have converted that potential into something the world can measure, and that is backward. Machiavelli understood this because he never studied men as they wished to be. He studied men as they behaved when money, fear, power, survival, and advantage were on the table. In The Prince, Machiavelli wrote, "Everyone sees what you appear to be, few really know what you are." This is not a quote about being misunderstood. It is a law of perception. The world does not examine your soul first. It reads your signal. It asks what this man can remove, create, protect, improve, sell, fix, organize, or control. If the answer is unclear, you remain invisible. Not because the world is evil, because the world is busy. If you do not understand this, you will waste years performing ambition instead of converting it into value. You will talk about your dreams to people who cannot fund them. You will explain your potential to people who cannot measure it. You will resent rich men because they seem known, while missing the fact that many of them became useful long before they became visible. You will mistake attention for power. And attention is not power unless it can command action. A man can be watched and still be poor. A man can be unknown and still be paid. The difference is dependency. The rich man's secret is not that everyone loved him. The secret is that at some point, someone needed what he could do. Most unknown men do not want money first. They want recognition. They want the world to say, "I see you." But the market does not pay you because it sees you. It pays you because you solve something painful. A like feels like progress. A compliment feels like movement. A follower count feels like status. But Machiavelli would call this weak measurement. He would ask, does this attention give you leverage? Does it make anyone dependent? Does it make you harder to replace? If not, it is only noise wearing the mask of progress. This is how ambitious men become poor performers. They perform confidence. They perform hustle. They perform being misunderstood. They perform the pain of being unsupported. But performance without utility does not build power. It only builds an audience for your frustration. Machiavelli warns us that men judge by results, not intentions. In The Prince, he wrote, "In the actions of all men, and especially of princes, one judges by the result." Modern translation. Nobody pays for your potential. Nobody rewards your internal fire. Nobody owes your ambition a crown. The result is the language power understands. Look at Airbnb before it became a global company. In 2008, Brian Chesky and Joe Gebbia were struggling to get traction. They were in debt. Investors were not rushing to save them. The idea looked strange to many people. Sleeping in a stranger's home did not sound like the future. It sounded risky, awkward, and easy to ignore. So they did not sit in a room complaining that nobody believed in them. They created limited edition cereal boxes called Obama O's and Captain McCain's during the United States election and sold them to raise cash. That story helped them impress Paul Graham and get into Y Combinator, which gave Airbnb a pivotal early opening. Pressure. Nobody wanted to fund them. Action. They created something sellable. First proof. Strangers paid. Power lesson. Before the market believed the company, the founders proved they could ship, sell, and survive. They did not win because they were famous. They became interesting because they were useful under pressure. That is the first cold law. Attention is weak until it proves usefulness. The unsupported man often wants people to notice his hunger. But hunger is not value. A starving wolf still has to hunt. A poor, ambitious man still has to solve a problem. Machiavelli's world does not reward need. It rewards force, usefulness, timing, and visible consequence. So stop seeing yourself as an undiscovered genius. That identity is seductive, but useless. Start seeing yourself as an unproven operator. The undiscovered genius waits. The unproven operator builds evidence. If you are an unsupported man building without applause, stop confusing consumption with progress. You already know the world is not coming to save you, but your problem is that your discipline is still too private, too scattered, and too invisible. If you keep learning without proof, thinking without publishing, and improving without positioning, you will become another intelligent man no one can identify, hire, trust, or depend on. Inside Patreon, you get deeper, unfiltered breakdowns on power, reputation, discipline, and psychological strategy, so you can turn private ambition into visible leverage. This is not for men who want comfort. It is for men who are ready to become harder to ignore. The decision is yours. Now the deeper question appears. What exactly does the market reward if it does not reward ambition? Your ambition means nothing until it becomes relief for someone else. That is the market's cruelty and its fairness. Some men work hard and stay poor because their effort does not remove a painful enough problem. They are busy, they are tired, they are sincere, but they are not strategically useful. Machiavelli would separate effort from effect. He did not worship virtue as intention. He studied virtue as capacity. The word often used for this in Machiavelli is virtue, not virtue as moral purity. Virtue means force, ability, courage, adaptation, command, and effectiveness under changing conditions. A man with virtue does not simply want a better life. He imposes form on chaos. If you misunderstand this, you become bitter. You say, I work harder than them. I am smarter than them. I deserve more. But the market does not pay for deserving. It pays for solved pain. A coder removes technical bottlenecks. A copywriter removes hesitation from buyers. An editor removes boredom from content. A salesperson removes uncertainty from customers. A designer removes confusion from perception. A strategist removes waste from direction. If you remove nothing, you earn little. If you remove expensive pain, you become expensive. NVIDIA is useful here because its power did not come from being loud. It came from becoming infrastructure. CUDA is NVIDIA's platform for accelerated computing, the software layer that lets applications use graphics processing units beyond graphics. CUDA was released in 2007, long before the current artificial intelligence boom made GPU infrastructure feel obvious. Pressure. Graphics processing units were known mainly for graphics and gaming. Action. NVIDIA made them useful for general-purpose computation. First proof. Developers could use graphics processing units for scientific and high-performance workloads. Power lesson. The strongest position is often not attention. It is infrastructure dependency. This is Machiavellian. The ruler is not always the man on the poster. Sometimes the ruler is the man who controls what everyone else must use. So, the cold law is this: money follows removed pain, power follows dependency. Do not ask, how do I become known? Ask, what pain can I remove so clearly that people understand my value without emotional explanation? That question changes everything. You are not poor because nobody clapped. You are poor if nobody can identify what you solve. That is not an insult, it is a map. And once you see the map, you understand why the dangerous man is not always the loud man. Sometimes he is the quiet editor, the unknown coder, the ignored salesman, the invisible operator who solves one problem so well that powerful people begin to rely on him. He does not begin by demanding recognition. He begins by making himself hard to replace. Power is not only public glory. Power is position. Power is function. Power is being placed where your removal creates pain. In The Prince, Machiavelli wrote, "A prince ought to have no other aim or thought, but war and its rules and discipline." This does not mean you should worship conflict. In Machiavelli's world, war was the supreme test of survival and statecraft. In modern life, the proper translation is battlefield competence. A man must know his field. He must know the rules. He must know the weapons of his market. He must train before the test arrives. If you stay general, you stay cheap. If your skill is vague, your value is vague. If your value is vague, your income is negotiated downward. The invisible specialist does not say, "I am ambitious." He says, "I increase retention. I reduce churn. I close leads. I automate reporting. I design landing pages that convert. I edit videos so people keep watching. I write copy that turns doubt into action. I build systems that save 10 hours a week." That is not self-expression. That is market language. Imagine two men. The first man says, "I want to be successful. I am hungry. I just need someone to believe in me." The second man says, "I rewrote 3 landing pages and increased sign-ups by 18%. The first man wants sympathy. The second man has proof. The world may pity the first, but it pays the second. Being unknown is not fatal. Being unclear is fatal. Being unmeasurable is fatal. Being replaceable is fatal. The invisible specialist survives because his usefulness becomes measurable before his name becomes famous. Stop trying to look important. Start becoming operationally necessary. The man who looks important can be replaced by a louder actor. The man who is necessary has leverage. But usefulness alone is not enough, because if nobody can see it, someone else can own the credit. Private skill is not power until it becomes visible proof. This is where quiet men lose. They assume good work speaks for itself. It does not. Good work whispers. Proof speaks. Why does the less talented man often get ahead? Because he understands visibility. He frames his value. He documents outcomes. He controls perception. He does not wait for the world to interpret his usefulness correctly. He makes his usefulness legible. Machiavelli would not be surprised. In The Prince, he wrote, "Men in general judge more from appearances than from reality." And in another translation, "Everyone sees what you appear to be. Few really know what you are." This is not an invitation to fake value. That is the mistake weak men make when they discover power language. They think strategy means deception. They think perception means pretending. They think Machiavelli gives them permission to become manipulative. No, the true lesson is colder. Value without signal gets ignored. If you do not control the narrative of your usefulness, someone else will. Your boss will forget. Your client will undervalue. Your competitor will package worse skill better. Your friend will copy your idea and explain it with more confidence. Your family will still see the old version of you because you never produced undeniable evidence of the new one. This is why the unsupported man cannot rely on being understood. Understanding is charity. Proof is leverage. Look at Jimmy Donaldson, known as Mr. Beast. He did not become dominant because he waited to be appreciated. He studied the mechanism of YouTube. His early content started in 2012, but the rise came through obsessive experimentation with titles, thumbnails, retention, and formats. Millions of creators wanted attention, but wanting attention was not enough. He studied the platform as a system. He learned what made people click. He learned what made people stay. He learned what made people share. He learned what made the algorithm continue distributing the video after the first viewer watched. The platform did not reward his pain. It rewarded behavior that kept viewers watching. That is the same law in different clothing. Systems reward those who understand the system, not those who complain about it. The cold law is this: reality must be framed before it can be rewarded. Do not fake competence, but never hide it. Build public proof. A portfolio, a case study, a weekly breakdown, a before and after, a measurable result, a short video explaining the problem you solve, a public document showing how you think. A man with proof is harder to dismiss. A man with only ambition is easy to ignore. Stop being the quiet, competent man who resents being overlooked. That is not nobility. That is strategic negligence. If your work matters, make it legible. If your value is real, make it visible. But visibility alone still does not create wealth. The next stage is colder. You must become useful where dependency forms. There are 3 stages in the rise of a useful man: private competence, visible proof, market dependency. Most men stop at the first and wonder why they are still poor. Competence means you can do something. Proof means others can see it. Dependency means others suffer when you are gone. That 3rd stage is where power begins. Without private competence, you are noise. Without visible proof, you are invisible. Without market dependency, you are optional. And optional men are always negotiating from weakness. Machiavelli's realism is built on this. In The Prince, he warns that power gained through the arms or fortune of others is unstable. A ruler who relies on outside forces stands on dangerous ground. Modern translation. If your income depends entirely on someone else's mercy, you are not secure. If your reputation depends entirely on someone else's approval, you are not secure. If your future depends entirely on being chosen, you are not secure. Stage 1 is private competence. This is the lonely stage. Nobody claps, nobody understands, nobody asks what you are building. You learn the skill after work. You study while others escape. You fail where no one can see. You repeat the boring exercise. You confront how weak your attention has become. You realize that desire is cheap and discipline is expensive. This is where unsupported men are forged. Stage 2 is visible proof. You stop hiding behind potential. You create evidence. A landing page, a portfolio, a channel, a demo, a demo, a demo, a case study, a sales script, a productized service, a documented result. You make the invisible visible. Stage 3 is market dependency. Now the game changes. People do not hire you because they like your story. They hire you because your absence costs them. You become the editor who lifts retention. The closer who turns leads into cash. The operator who makes chaos measurable. The strategist who prevents expensive mistakes. The builder whose system becomes part of their machine. That is leverage. The rich man is not always the most known. He is often the most useful where others are dependent. Skill makes you capable. Proof makes you credible. Dependency makes you powerful. Do not ask, "Am I talented?" Ask, "Am I necessary?" Talent is private, necessity is political. And Machiavelli would always choose the position that gives power over the trait that gives pride. But the unsupported man often destroys this process by demanding belief too early. That is the trap. The unsupported man's deepest weakness is not that nobody believes in him. It is that part of him still wants belief before proof. This is dangerous because it turns ambition into begging. You explain, you justify, you try to make people understand a future they have no incentive to see. And every explanation leaks authority. When you ask for belief before usefulness, you hand power to the audience. Your family becomes the judge, your friends become the court, society becomes the gatekeeper, and you become the defendant of your own ambition. That is a weak position. Machiavelli would not respect it. He wrote in The Prince that it is safer for a ruler to be feared than loved when he cannot be both, because love depends on obligation, while fear is maintained by consequence. This does not mean you should try to scare people in modern life. That would be a distortion. The modern application is this: do not build your future on affection. Build it on consequence. When your skill creates consequence, people treat you differently. When your absence has a cost, people remember you. When your proof is undeniable, people stop needing to like you first. The weak man says, "Please believe in me." The strategic man says, "Here is what I have built." The weak man says, "They do not support me." The strategic man says, "Good, then no one owns the result." The weak man says, "They do not understand." The strategic man says, "They do not need to understand. They will understand the evidence." This is not emotional hardness. This is political maturity. A man who needs belief before action can be stopped by doubt. A man who acts before belief becomes harder to control. The cold law is this: belief follows proof. Proof follows work. Work follows self-command. Reverse the order and you stay dependent. You want belief first because belief feels warm. But warmth does not build leverage. Proof does. Stop being a man waiting to be understood. Become a man whose results reduce the need for explanation. The boy wants approval. The builder wants evidence. Now the deeper question appears. How do you build proof when you have no support, no network, and no one opening doors? Fortune may decide where you begin, but it does not get full ownership over what you become. Machiavelli's world is not naive. He knew luck matters, family matters, timing matters, politics matters, money matters, geography matters. These things shape outcomes. But he did not worship fortune. He believed a strong man must learn to meet fortune with force, preparation, and adaptation. In The Prince, Machiavelli wrote that fortune controls part of human affairs, but leaves the rest to human action. If you overestimate fortune, you become passive. If you underestimate fortune, you become arrogant. The strategic man does neither. He studies the terrain. He accepts disadvantage without worshipping it. He asks what can be controlled: skill, output, proof, positioning, reputation, distribution, discipline, the speed of learning, the quality of evidence, the problems he chooses to solve. That is where virtue lives. Most men use bad fortune as an identity. No support, no network, no rich parents, no mentor, no applause, no one coming. All of that may be true, but truth is not strategy until it becomes action. Machiavelli wrote in The Art of War, "Whoever is more vigilant in observing the designs of the enemy and endures much hardship in training his army will incur fewer dangers and can have greater hope for victory." In its original context, he was speaking of military preparation. Do not distort it. He was not saying life is literally war in every moment. He was saying that disorder loses to preparation. Applied to your life, your enemy is not your family's doubt. Your enemy is not society's indifference. Your enemy is not the rich man ahead of you. Your enemy is your lack of useful preparation. Fortuna gives conditions. Virtue creates position. You may not control who supports you, but you control whether your skill becomes visible. You may not control who doubts you, but you control whether doubt meets evidence. You may not control whether your name is known, but you control whether your work becomes useful. Stop calling yourself unlucky before you have become disciplined. Bad fortune explains the battlefield. It does not excuse failure to train. If you are a man who knows he has been using isolation as an excuse, instead of turning it into proof, stop calling private improvement growth. You already know support is not coming first, but your real problem is that your work has not become visible enough to create leverage. If you keep hiding behind preparation, you will become skilled in private and powerless in public. Inside Patreon, you get unfiltered frameworks, deeper breakdowns, and direct psychological strategy for building discipline, proof, reputation, and leverage without waiting for permission. This is not for spectators. It is for men who are done begging the world to notice them. The decision is yours. Now training must aim at the right target. If you have no network, your proof must become the network. If no one will introduce you, your work must introduce you. How does a man become useful before he is known? He follows a brutal sequence, not motivation. Sequence. Isolation becomes discipline. Discipline becomes skill. Skill becomes proof. Proof becomes leverage. Leverage becomes money, power, and freedom. Without sequence, you drift. You learn random things. You start and quit. You consume content and call it growth. You change direction every month because the first path did not give instant status. That is not ambition. That is undisciplined hunger. Here is the protocol. Pick one painful market problem, not a passion. A problem. Bored viewers, low sales, bad leads, ugly design, slow workflow, unclear messaging, wasted time, poor conversion, chaotic operations. Then build one measurable skill. Do not say, I want to be successful. Say, I will learn editing for retention. I will learn landing page copy. I will learn landing page copy. I will learn outbound sales. I will learn automation. I will learn paid acquisition. I will learn financial modeling. I will learn user experience design. I will learn one thing that removes one expensive pain. Then create one public proof asset every week. A teardown, a case study, a before and after, a short tutorial, a sample project, a breakdown of a real business problem, a portfolio page, a documented result. Then repeat until strangers can understand your value in 10 seconds. Not your personality, not your struggle, your value. If a stranger cannot understand what you do in 10 seconds, your signal is too weak. The cold law is this. Proof is compressed usefulness. A good proof asset says, here is the problem. Here is the mechanism. Here is what I changed. Here is the result. Here is why it matters. That is how an unknown man becomes legible to the market. You are not building content. You are building evidence. You are not posting for validation. You are creating public proof that your mind can remove pain. But proof alone must be protected by reputation. Because in Machiavelli's world, reputation is not decoration, it is armor. Being good is not enough. Being trusted for a useful result is stronger. This is where Machiavelli becomes uncomfortable. He does not tell rulers to be immoral for pleasure. He tells them that moral appearance and political survival are not the same problem. In The Prince, he argues that a ruler must learn how not to be good when necessity requires it. This idea is often reduced into cartoon villainy, but the original point is more precise. A ruler who cannot adapt to necessity will be destroyed by those who can. Modern application must be limited. This does not mean lie, exploit, or harm people. That is stupid and self-destructive. It means do not confuse being liked with being valuable. Do not confuse being agreeable with being trusted. Do not confuse moral self-image with market usefulness. A man who is kind but unreliable loses. A man who is polite but unclear loses. A man who has good intentions but no delivery loses. The market remembers delivery. Reputation is not what you feel about yourself. Reputation is what people expect from you before you enter the room. If they expect excuses, your reputation is weak. If they expect confusion, your reputation is weak. If they expect emotional reactions, your reputation is weak. If they expect useful output, your reputation begins to harden. In The Art of War, Machiavelli wrote, "Without doubt, ferocious and disordered men are much weaker than timid and ordered ones, for order chases fear from men, and disorder lessens ferocity." This is a perfect law for the unsupported man. Intensity is not enough. Hunger is not enough. Anger is not enough. Order beats raw energy. Reputation is repeated proof turned into expectation. One result is evidence. Repeated results become reputation. Reputation reduces friction. People trust faster. Clients decide faster. Opportunities open faster. Not because you are loved, because your pattern is known. Stop trying to be seen as special. Become predictable in your usefulness. Predictable usefulness becomes trust. Trust becomes access. Access becomes leverage. And once you understand leverage, you stop worshipping money as the goal. You see money for what it is. A byproduct of power. Money is not the deepest target, power is. Money follows the man who controls value, perception, access, or dependency. Men chase money and stay poor because they chase the symbol instead of the structure. Money is a receipt. It proves that somewhere, somehow, value moved. But the deeper question is this: what structure produced that value? A skill, a system, a network, a brand, a platform, a dependency, a scarce capability. If you chase money without power, you become desperate. You lower your price. You accept bad terms. You tolerate disrespect. You sell time without leverage. You remain replaceable. But if you build usefulness into proof and proof into dependency, money becomes more likely to follow because your position improves. Interest governs allegiance, and control of resources precedes control of men. This does not mean reduce all human life to money. It means never pretend money is separate from power. Money buys time. Time buys skill. Skill builds proof. Proof creates leverage. Leverage creates options. Options create freedom. A man without options must accept terms. A man with options can negotiate. Do not chase money first. Chase the position that makes money rational. Become useful. Make it visible. Create dependency. Protect reputation. Then negotiate from strength. You are not trying to look rich. You are trying to become structurally difficult to replace. That is the richer identity. But there is one final danger. Usefulness can make you powerful, but if misunderstood, it can also make you owned. There is a kind of usefulness that creates freedom, and there is a kind of usefulness that turns you into a tool. Know the difference. Some useful men stay trapped because they become useful only inside someone else's structure. They are needed, but not independent. Valuable, but not visible. important but not credited, busy but not leveraged. This is the employee who holds the machine together but has no public proof. The operator who saves the company money but never documents results. The creator behind the creator who never bills his own name. The quiet expert who becomes indispensable but not powerful. If your usefulness is invisible and owned by another structure, your value can be contained. They need you, but the outside world does not know why. That means your leverage is trapped. Machiavelli warned rulers not to rely on the arms of others. In his world, mercenary and auxiliary forces were dangerous because they made a ruler dependent on power he did not truly control. Modern translation. Do not build your entire future on rented ground. Do not let one company own all proof of your usefulness. Do not let one platform own all your distribution. Do not let one client own all your income. Do not let one boss own the story of your competence. Do not distort this into paranoia. This is not about refusing cooperation. It is about refusing total dependency. Usefulness must create options, or it becomes servitude. A useful man with no options is exploited. A useful man with proof is mobile. A useful man with distribution is dangerous. A useful man with reputation is free. Do not only become useful, become visibly useful in a way that travels with you. Your proof must not die when you leave the room. The rich man's secret is not that he was known first. It is that he became useful where usefulness created leverage. The world did not need his story. It needed his function. Human beings judge by appearance before reality, so your usefulness must be signaled. Men respond to necessity, so solve a problem connected to pain, money, time, status, fear, or survival. Fortune matters, but virtue answers fortune. So stop worshipping disadvantage and start building capacity. Reputation is power, so repeat proof until people expect usefulness from you. Wealth follows structure, so do not chase money as decoration. Build the position that makes money a consequence, and never confuse being liked with being needed. Love is unstable when interest changes. Usefulness tied to consequence is harder to ignore. Machiavelli's thought is dangerous when misunderstood because weak men use it as an excuse to become manipulative. That is not strategy, that is insecurity wearing a mask. The true Machiavellian lesson is colder. See reality clearly, understand interest. Build capacity, control perception, create proof, become necessary, and never ask the world to reward a value it cannot see. You are not unknown because destiny has rejected you. You are unknown because your usefulness has not yet become visible enough, sharp enough, measurable enough, or necessary enough. That can change, not through begging, not through explaining, not through waiting for someone to believe, through proof. The unsupported man does not need permission. He needs a problem. He needs a skill. He needs evidence. He needs repetition. He needs enough discipline to become useful before he becomes known. Because once people need what you can do, your name begins to matter for a different reason. Not because you demanded attention, because your absence started to cost them. That is when ambition becomes visible. That is when usefulness becomes leverage. That is when the unknown man begins to move like power. If this gave you a clearer view of power, continue studying Machiavellian realism. Read The Prince. Read discourses on Livy. Study the art of war, not to become cruel, to stop being naive. Subscribe to Depths of Psyche for more cold philosophy for men building with no support, no network, and no one coming to save them. No support, no network, no excuses. Build anyway.